Alternative Alternatives to the core experience ACE diversion program recidivism rate of juveniles and misdemeanors.
Decisions guiding juvenile prosecution ought to be in such a way that the outcome is aimed at maintaining public safety and equally giving the young offenders a chance for rehabilitation. Thus far, the Alternative to Court Experience ACE diversion program, established in Washington, D.C. in 2014, has proven to be a creative, data-driven, yet effective approach to juvenile prosecution as it ensures the safety of the community, as well as that of the well-being of the young offenders. Youth are referred to the ACE program for truancy offenses, low-level delinquency offenses, and misdemeanor offenses. Before a diversion from the normal justice system is made, a careful analysis of the juvenile's case is made to ensure the appropriateness of the ACE diversion program.
An introduction of diversion program in the juvenile justice system and the impact that the same will have on the recidivism rate for the crimes committed by the young offenders is a question of debate for over 2 decades now. Interventions and positive life events during adolescence may reduce the probability that a juvenile offender will become an adult criminal. This study is important because a measure of the recidivism rate will show the effectiveness of the ACE diversion program and therefore provide a foundational basis of whether to maintain the program in juvenile justice or to cease its operations. Therefore, the information obtained can help to decrease the cost of prison reform and decrease the recidivism rate for juveniles. In light of these issues, this research project will propose a study on how the alternatives to the core experience ACE diversion program will impact the recidivism rate for juveniles that commit crimes and misdemeanors.
Information from relevant literature. The popularity of juveniles' criminal behavior is something that has gained much news coverage over the last few decades. There is always a news report of a teenager engaged in theft, burglary, murders, or other criminal activities. However, what the media fails to mention is how the criminal justice system works to ensure the offenses are dealt with appropriately and in a manner that would decrease recidivism. Most states in the USA have reported that young offenders who are incarcerated have an extremely high probability of being rearrested within the first 3 years of release, thereby prompting the justice system to rethink its approach to juvenile cases. Labriola argues that dealing with juvenile crimes requires the right approach, lest we render the offenders at the mercy to reoffend over and over again, and worst of all, the society subjected to the unsafe activities. As Vilholen, Nicholas, and De Vries assert, numerous studies have been performed to measure the effectiveness of legislative actions against juvenile crimes, but their effectiveness is reducing the tendencies to reoffend among the young offenders has been a matter of international debate. Moreover, Vilholen posits that the ACE diversion program has been developed in order to help youths and that have committed crimes or misdemeanors to be redirected out of the prison system and into rehabilitation programs. The program mentioned helps the young offenders and their families by means of such services as mentorship, therapy, tutoring, mental health treatment, school support, and creation. The services ensure individual development for the betterment of the self and society at large.
A research study by Walker, Pan, Shapiro, and Van Hasselt portrays the foundation, formulation, and implementation of ACE diversion program as being the most creative and effective way of fighting against juvenile crimes. Vance, in his illustration, hypothesized that 500 young offenders who have been absorbed in the program between June 2014 and March 2015, 90% of these youths have not been involved in reoffending scenarios, and 62% of them showed immense improvements in their school attendance and general performance. The study concludes that the ACE diversion programs, which includes family counseling and mentorship, would be more effective and beneficial than prosecution in the court of law. As illustrated by Wolf, Baglivio, and Picurio, Opting to deal with juvenile crimes by means of detention and actual court prosecution leads to a vacuum in effective response mechanism. The vacuum is well filled with an integration of the ACE diversion program in the juvenile justice system, whose implementation in the recent research indicates a decrease in the inclinations to reoffend among young offenders. Additionally, research shows that young offenders who are allowed to remain amongst their community and not incarcerated for that matter have notably displayed lower rates of recidivism than the incarcerated offenders. Studies reveal that the benefits accruing to ACE over the traditional court procedures are endless. According to Viljoen, ACE diversion program benefits the young offenders, their families, and the community at large, as it enables the young offenders' records to be clean by keeping them from entering the juvenile delinquency system. Additionally, Mansella states that the tendency for offenders to reoffend is greatly minimized. Therefore, the safety of the public is enhanced and promoted. The cost per person in the ACE program is considerably small, that is approximately $4,000. On the other hand, the cost per person on probation, incarceration, or residential placement is higher than the so mentioned cost. Thus, ACE saves our money a great deal.
Here are the noted benefits of the ACE program, as stated before in a graphic. So our research question. This proposed study is interested in how participation in the ACE diversion program impacts the recidivism rate for the juveniles that commit crimes and misdemeanors. The independent variable of participation in the program and dependent variable of recidivism rate was employed in this study. The hypothesis is that the researchers hypothesized that the recidivism rate among juveniles would inevitably decrease due to the rehabilitative nature of the ACE diversion program. Our methodology and research design. This study proposes the use of a longitudinal study, which is based on self-reported surveys, and reference to the Fraley and Hudson 2014 arguments on the various study designs. Longitudinal study research design will be very appropriate for a psychological study, as it enables the researcher to periodically, over the course of research, collect the same data from participants, thus giving a room for the researcher to monitor the mental condition of the participants over time. Additionally, being observational in nature and a design that is more appropriate for research taking is usually extended period of time. The research design will facilitate a more insightful and unique study of developmental and lifespan issues. Considering that the research is interested in how the ACE diversion program impacts the recidivism rate for the juveniles that commit crimes and misdemeanors, this research design is quite appropriate. Participants may be questioned about their GPA, whether or not they are in high school, whether or not they are a high school graduate, the probability of the participant attending college, frequent school attendance, and finally the mental health report from both the participant and their respective therapist.
The participants for this study. The study will evaluate the impact of ACE, a juvenile diversion program in the Washington, D.C. area. The population that will make up the participants for this proposed study is the youth who entered the ACE diversion program between the years 2014 and 2018, and other youths of the same age bracket prosecuted through normal court experience.
So the control group will be a group of non-equivalent offenders from Florida, sourced from 2014 to 2018. All of the juveniles were also put into a diversion program, probation, residential commitment, and adult transfer. The Florida Department of Juvenile Justice publishes all of its statewide juvenile justice data from prevention to reentry on a public website that enables users to conduct their own analysis of the data to answer questions of interest. That also publishes user-friendly reports to the efficacy of specific programs, as well as educational, health prevention, detention, and intake services to promote the increased transparency and accountability on the outcomes of these system interventions. The thing that they have in common is the fact that it'll be 10 to 17-year-olds admitted between 10 to 17-year-old.